it's Chris. Welcome to Square One Module 2. In this module, I'm going to help you understand why you may have cancer, why the rates of cancer have exploded, and help you identify the specific cancer causers in our world and in your life that you may need to address to help your body heal. 70 to 95% of cancers are caused by diet, lifestyle, and environment. The sad reality is that the cancer industry knows what's causing cancer, but they're not interested in prevention and they're not addressing the causes. They just want to treat the symptoms because that's where the money is. This is where you come in, because with education and action, you can identify and remove many of these potential cancer causers in your life. The more you can reduce your body's toxic load, the better your odds of preventing and healing cancer. Now, the first thing on a cancer patient's mind after a diagnosis is, why me? Like, why did this happen to me? How did I get cancer? As I said in Module 1, cancer is the convergence of a multitude of health-destroying factors in your life that usually persist for a long period of time, usually many years, which is long enough to break you down and make you vulnerable to disease. I also told you that if you have cancer, you should assume that the way you're living is killing you. Not to blame you or shame you, but to empower you to change your life. Many of these cancer-causing factors can be removed, and your risk of getting a recurrence or dying from cancer can be greatly reduced just by your choices. Your choices matter. Now, we know that cancer has been around for thousands of years because researchers have found a few mummies with evidence of cancer, but the rates of cancer exploded after the Industrial Revolution. If you look at the way that most of us live on the earth today, especially those of us that live in Western industrialized nations, we live a very different life than our ancestors. Our diet and lifestyle is different. Our work habits are different. Our recreation habits are different. Our entertainment habits are different. It's all totally different. For most people, their cancer wasn't caused by one thing. There may have been many instigators, but there were many other factors in their life that contributed to cancer's development. Years ago, a study was published which found that the rate of cancer among Japanese smokers was nearly 7 times lower than American smokers. Why? Well, 2 reasons. One is the Japanese diet and lifestyle is healthier and more protective. And 2, Japanese cigarettes may contain less toxic chemical additives than American cigarettes. A healthier diet and lifestyle and less toxic exposure equals less cancer. There are 3 pillars of health. 1 is our diet and lifestyle, 2, our environment, and 3 is stress. Now, these are broad categories and we're going to drill down into them, but just in the beginning, understand that diet and lifestyle, environment, and stress are the 3 main causes of cancer and most types of disease. Now, there are 2 different types of disease. First is infectious disease, which is caused by a virus, bacteria, parasite, or pathogen, and causes diseases like measles, herpes, malaria, influenza. Infectious diseases are also known as diseases of poverty. In impoverished nations, third world countries, infectious diseases are leading killers to this day, primarily because they haven't been educated on hygiene, they don't have good sanitation practices. People in third world countries are eating dirty food, drinking dirty water that's loaded with viruses, bacteria, and parasites. In the early 1900s, infectious diseases were the leading killer in the United States, causing roughly 1/3 of all deaths, mainly in children under 5. Today, infectious diseases cause less than 5% of deaths in the U.S. So we've made huge strides in eliminating infectious diseases, mainly because of sanitation and hygiene. Simple things like washing our food, washing our hands, public water treatment, and regulations that prevent contamination in food production. Now, the other type of disease is called chronic disease. Chronic disease is also known as Western disease and disease of affluence. The reason they call chronic diseases Western diseases is because when they first began to discover them, they were only happening in Western nations, in first world countries, in industrialized societies. Chronic disease includes heart disease, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune disease. There are dozens of diseases that are categorized as Western diseases. Most cancers are considered to be Western diseases. But according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, 18 to 20% of cancers are linked to infections. This is from viruses like hepatitis B and C, HIV, Epstein-Barr, some lesser-known viruses like human T-cell lymphotrophic virus, Merkel cell polyomavirus, Kaposi sarcoma herpes virus, and bovine leukemia virus. Most of these viruses are spread by kissing, sexual contact, needle sharing, blood transfusions, organ transplants, and even sharing food or drinks or a toothbrush with someone who's infected. Some of them can be passed from mother to child during childbirth and through breastfeeding. If you've ever wondered what causes childhood cancer, here's one cause. ALL, the most common form of childhood leukemia, has recently been traced back to a specific virus called CMV, congenital cytomegalovirus, which is a form of herpes that can be passed from mother to child during childbirth. And children born with CMV are roughly 4 to 6 times more likely to develop ALL between the ages of 2 and 6. So it's estimated that about 80% of people carry the CMV virus. So some viruses can't be avoided, but if you engage in risky behavior like promiscuous sex or needle drugs, your odds of contracting multiple cancer-causing viruses is much higher. But don't freak out. Not everyone who contracts these viruses will develop cancer. As long as your immune system is strong, your risk is low. But viruses can lay dormant in your body for many years and then flare up and cause a problem because your immune system became weakened or suppressed for a long period of time. So this is why the things that you can control, like your diet, lifestyle, environment, and stress, are so important. A healthy body can keep viruses in check. There's one virus on the list that's a little different from the rest and can be avoided. That's the bovine leukemia virus. Bovine leukemia virus is a cancer-causing virus found in cow's milk and meat. It's widespread. 80% of small dairy farms and 100% of large dairy farms were found to be infected with bovine leukemia virus when milk supplies were tested in 2007. Now, pasteurization should render this virus harmless in milk, but you can also contract it from eating undercooked beef, as in rare or medium rare. A 2003 study found that 74% of people tested had been previously exposed to bovine leukemia virus. Here's where it gets really interesting. Researchers took breast tissue samples from women with breast cancer to test for bovine leukemia virus. And according to their findings, the presence of bovine leukemia virus DNA in breast cancer tissue was strongly associated with breast cancer. And as many as 37% of breast cancer cases may be attributable to bovine leukemia virus. This means over a third of breast cancers, that's over 80,000 cases a year, may be caused just by eating undercooked beef. H. pylori is a bacteria known to cause inflammation, ulcers, and stomach cancer. And the rate of H. pylori infection and stomach cancer is much higher in third world countries because of poor sanitation and hygiene practices. H. pylori also converts nitrites from cured meats into cancer-causing compounds in the gut. The top cancers in Western nations, lung cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, are considered to be Western cancers. Now, back to Japan. In 1955, the death rate for pancreatic cancer, leukemia, and lymphomas was 3 to 4 times lower than the US. The death rate for colon, prostate, breast, and ovarian cancers was 5 to 10 times lower. This was at a time when animal products accounted for less than 5% of the Japanese diet. Now, Japan is not an anomaly. There are many parts of the world with much lower rates of cancer than Western nations like the US, Canada, Europe, and Australia, especially where people are eating plant-based diets. You can actually go to a website called Globocan, and there's an interactive map that lets you see what the rates of any type of cancer in any country in the world are. And one example that may surprise you is Mexico. Mexico has half the overall cancer rates of the US. There are dozens of countries that have a third of the overall cancer rates of the US. And in more specific regions, it's even lower. There are over 20 African nations with a rate of colon cancer that's 5 times lower than the US. Mozambique is nearly 25 times lower. They don't have a genetic advantage. What they have is a diet and lifestyle advantage. They're living their lives in a different way, and they're eating foods that are protective. They're also not doing as many things that are destructive. Maintaining health requires doing two things simultaneously. Health is not doing things that are harmful to your body, and instead doing things that are beneficial to your body, like giving it the right fuel and raw materials that it needs to repair, regenerate, and detoxify. One of my heroes is Dr. Denis Burkitt. Dr. Burkitt was an Irish surgeon who worked in African hospitals in the 50s and 60s after World War II. During his time there, he noticed that many of the common diseases in the US, Europe, and even South Africa were virtually non-existent among the rural Africans. The doctors in rural Africa weren't seeing colon cancer or Crohn's disease or hemorrhoids or colitis or heart disease or diabetes or appendicitis. There's a long list of cancers and chronic diseases common to Western nations that they weren't seeing at all. Now, this compelled Burkitt to research not only the Africans, but other cultures around the world to figure out why their diet and lifestyles were protective against Western diseases like most cancers, heart disease, and diabetes. Burkitt observed that the rural Africans ate a diet that was very high in fiber. His hypothesis was that their high-fiber diet was protective against colon cancer, heart disease, and many other Western diseases. And Burkitt's research is the reason dietary fiber became a household word in the 1970s. What we know now is it wasn't just the fiber. Like I said earlier, it was the things they were doing and the things they weren't doing that were producing optimal health for these people. So what were they doing? Well, the rural Africans were eating a diet that was very high in fiber. They were eating a starch-based diet, plant-based diet. They weren't vegetarians or vegans. They were just people living in the African bush. They were living in small villages, and they were eating whole foods from the earth. They were living off starchy vegetables: beans, peas, lentils, corn, rice, potatoes, grains like millet, spelt, teff, wheat, and fruit when it was in season. They were eating root vegetables like carrots, beets, and turnips. They were eating cabbage and green leafy vegetables like collard greens and mustard greens. And they were eating very little meat and dairy. If you live in an African village, you don't have access to a grocery store to buy chicken or fish or beef whenever you felt like it. And there aren't any restaurants either. So if you wanted to eat meat, you had to kill an animal. You either had to catch it and kill it in the wild, or you had to kill an animal that you raised. If you raised chickens, you couldn't kill a chicken every night for dinner because you'd run out of chickens. So killing and eating the animals you raised was saved for special occasions. If you're killing a large animal like a cow or a pig, it means the whole village is having a feast. And killing animals in the wild is not that easy. You definitely aren't doing that every day. So eating animals was sparse. They might eat animals anywhere from a few times a week to a few times a month to a few times a year, depending on the region. These people thrived on starchy vegetables, simple, whole foods from the earth. They were also not eating white sugar, white flour, table salt, and oils. They were not eating anything in a package or a box. There was no fast food or junk food, no processed food. They were eating giant piles of beans and sweet potatoes. They were living on carbohydrates, high starch, high fiber, high carb, tons of plant food and very little animal food, and zero man-made processed food. Western civilization consumes a ridiculous amount of meat, dairy, sugar, white flour, salt, and oils, not to mention all the artificial additives, preservatives, colors, flavors, taste enhancers, texture enhancers, and all the other junk they put in our food. The rural Africans also weren't eating any genetically modified food like GMO corn, soy, and canola, which are the three biggest GMO crops. 90% of the corn, soy, and canola grown in the U.S. is GMO. If you pick up any fast food, junk food, or processed food and look at the ingredients, you're going to find corn, soy, and canola in almost all of it. So we're eating a lot of genetically modified food. Here's the GMO Cliff Notes. GMO crops are genetically modified to be resistant to weed killers like Roundup. The main ingredient in Roundup is glyphosate, which is classified as a probable carcinogen. And a major review of 44 scientific studies found that glyphosate exposure doubles a farmer's risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma because it disrupts normal white blood cell function and wrecks your immune system. But it's not just the farmers who need to worry because glyphosate can't be washed off. GMO crops that are sprayed with Roundup absorb the glyphosate and then you end up eating it. But wait, it gets worse. Farmers also spray glyphosate on non-GMO crops before they harvest to kill the crops and speed up the drying process. This includes conventionally grown wheat, millet, flax, rye, buckwheat, barley, oats, beans, peas, lentils, corn, potatoes, and more. Many experts now believe that widespread use of glyphosate, not grains, is the culprit behind the high rates of celiac, gluten intolerance, autoimmune disease, and many other digestive and physiological disorders. The rural Africans weren't eating any of the crazy stuff we're eating now, and they had really low rates of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and many other Western diseases. That's proof that their diet and lifestyle was truly healthy. Here's a fun fact. Autopsies of our Paleolithic ancestors have consistently found starchy plant matter in their teeth and digestive tracts, like oats, not a belly full of bacon, butter, and coconut oil. Just like the rural Africans, population studies from China, India, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and South America all show much lower rates of Western diseases. Those are the diets and lifestyles we should be imitating. Principle number one is we have to get back to a simple diet of whole foods from the earth that God made for us. We live and eat like kings. It's interesting, if you look at the lifespans of the kings of Europe, many of these kings had very short lifespans. Rich people got rich people diseases. Wealthy people got gout, heart disease, and cancer because of their diets. Our wealthy ancestors and kings were also often obese. Back then, obesity was a sign of wealth, and at one point in history, obese women were considered the most beautiful because it was a sign of their socioeconomic status. Today, we're eating nearly the same diet as the wealthy kings hundreds of years ago. Instead of eating a pauper's diet, we're eating a king's diet. Kings eat whatever they want, whenever they want. Kings can afford to eat 3 or more times per day, and they can eat expensive delicacies like meat and cheese at every meal. They can have desserts rich in fat, sugar, butter, cream, and oils. They can eat the finest, richest foods every day at every meal. They have access to all the wine, beer, and spirits they want. That sounds exactly like the Western diet, doesn't it? We're eating all the food we want, tons of meat, dairy, sugar, salt, and oils. But today, it's even worse because we have all the extra junk, the artificial additives, preservatives, flavors, and colors, and GMOs. Our modern diet is a king's diet, but worse. If you eat a king's diet, you're going to get king's diseases. I really want to hammer this home. You have to get back to a simple diet that is based on whole foods from the earth. You don't have to become a vegan or a vegetarian or take on some type of dietary identity or religion. You just have to start making good choices. We want to mimic the healthiest people on earth. We can learn from successful people, right? If you want to be successful in business, you study and implement the habits of successful business people. If you want to live a long, healthy, chronic disease-free life, then you study and implement the habits of large populations of people that are living long, healthy, disease-free lives. One of my favorite books is The Blue Zones. The Blue Zones was a National Geographic project started by Dan Buettner, who took a team around the world to study specific regions with exceptionally long-living people. The goal was to learn the secrets to long life and to essentially reverse engineer longevity. They identified multiple regions called blue zones with the highest percentages of people living past 100. This includes Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, the Greek island Icaria, and Nicoya, Costa Rica. And surprisingly, there is actually one American blue zone, Loma Linda, California. What Salt Lake City is to the Mormons, Loma Linda is to the Seventh-day Adventists. It's kind of like their headquarters. Half of Adventists are vegetarian and about 8% are vegan. And the strict Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda have a much longer lifespan than the average American. The men live 7 years longer than the average Californian man and have much lower rates of many Western diseases, all because of their healthy diet and lifestyle. Another example is the China study. This is the largest population study of its kind. They collected data on every province in China, millions of people, to measure their rates of disease and examine their diets. And the gist of the China study is that rural China has much lower rates of cancer and heart disease than the US, and they eat a plant-based diet. They eat tons of rice, vegetables, and fruit, and very little animal products. Another book I love is Healthy at 100 by my friend John Robbins, which also examines the diet and lifestyle habits of healthy, long-living people around the world. Those 3 books are wonderful reads if you want to get a global perspective on health and longevity. Truth is simple, and the simple truth is that our diet and lifestyle choices can promote health or disease. You can dig your grave with your teeth if you so choose. Hopefully, you're starting to understand that what you put in your mouth will either promote disease or promote health. We have to change what we put in our mouth first. Before you run off to a cancer clinic in Mexico, before you take 1 million supplements, before you do a bunch of weird therapies that may or may not help you, you have to change your diet. Nutrition is the foundation of health. Circling back to Dr. Burkitt, after Burkitt observed that the rural Africans ate a high-fiber, high-starch, plant-based diet, he was curious about their bowel movements. He wanted to know how many times a day they pooped, how big their poops were, the consistency, and he wanted to know how quickly food moved through their bodies. So he weighed their poops, and they were twice as big as American poops. And they were soft, more like a cow patty than a log. Then he added special dye to their meals to measure their transit time, and he discovered that their average transit time from mouth to anus was 30 hours, basically 1 day. Now you can do the same thing with beets. Just eat a serving of beets with a meal, and then every time you poop, take a look at it, and at some point, your poop is going to be beet red. And it might scare you for a second, but don't worry, it's just the beets, and that's how you can measure your own bowel transit time. So Burkitt discovered that the average transit time for the rural Africans was 30 hours. He conducted the same test on Europeans and Americans, and their average transit time was 72 hours. It was taking nearly 2.5 times longer for food to make its way through their bodies. Why? Because Americans and Europeans were eating so much more meat, dairy, and refined processed food. A high-starch, high-fiber diet is easily digested and it moves through your body quickly. Meat, dairy, and white flour are slow movers and cause constipation. Even if you poop every day, you still may have a long transit time. You may think you're regular because you're going every day, but what you're pooping today may be what you ate 3 days ago. That's not good. Do the beet test and find out how quickly food is moving through your body. Now, there's an easy remedy to constipation, and that's to switch to a whole foods plant-based diet. Lots of fruits and vegetables, which are naturally high in fiber and starch. You don't need to take a fiber supplement, just eat lots of fruits and vegetables every day. By the way, Burkitt also did the same study on nursing home patients, and he found that their average transit time was about 2 weeks. 2 weeks! Can you imagine? Now, why is this so important? Why does transit time matter? Here's why. Your liver is one of your body's main detoxification organs. Your liver dumps metabolic waste into your digestive tract. When you eat food, whatever's not digested, like insoluble fiber, moves through your digestive tract and it absorbs that liver bile and carries it out the back door. Now, a high fiber, high starch diet does a really good job of absorbing those toxins that are secreted by your liver and carrying them out quickly. If you get a diet that's high in meat and dairy, it moves through very slowly, and the meat and dairy and whatever else you ate mix with the liver bile and it all putrefies and it creates toxic byproducts. Some of them are called fecal mutagens. What's grosser than gross? Fecal mutagens. These toxic byproducts irritate and inflame the lining of your digestive tract, especially your colon. They cause irritation and precancerous inflammation. And some of these toxins are reabsorbed into your bloodstream, so you end up in a vicious cycle of autointoxication. Your body's constantly reabsorbing some of the toxins that it's trying to eliminate because your bowels are moving too slow. If you feel like crap all the time, it may be because you're actually reabsorbing some of your crap. The abundance of vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and phytonutrients in food, especially fruits and vegetables, is an obvious benefit to a plant-based diet. The second benefit is the fiber and starch, which moves through your body quickly and helps you eliminate toxic metabolic waste before it can putrefy, cause inflammation, and get reabsorbed into your bloodstream. The principles of a healthy diet are simple, and we'll talk about specific foods you should be eating every day in the next 2 modules. But generally speaking, you just need to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, raw and cooked, and you need to minimize or eliminate animal products and all processed food. As the legend Jack LaLanne said, if man made it, don't eat it. Another problem we have is too much food. If you're watching this, you probably live in a Western nation with an unlimited food supply. With the exception of the homeless, even the poorest Americans rarely go a day without eating. So we have an unlimited supply of food, and our calorie consumption has increased significantly over time. According to the USDA, in 1909, the average American ate 3,400 calories per day, which, by the way, is still 1,000 to 1,500 calories more than most people need to eat. Today, the average American eats roughly 4,000 calories a day. It's 400 calories more per day than we were eating 100 years ago. This is why 2/3 of Americans are now overweight and 1/3 of Americans are now obese, because we're eating way too much. So now let's talk about body fat. Food is fuel. It's a source of energy. We eat food primarily to give our bodies energy to function. To understand why we're fat just takes a basic understanding of supply and demand economics. Your body has a certain requirement of calories per day, depending on your activity level. Calories are a measurement of energy that you get from food. If you consume more energy from food, more fuel, more calories per day than your body needs, it will store that energy for later as fat, which is a good thing. Before restaurants and supermarkets were on every corner, our ancestors would go through periods of food scarcity. They were growing their own food, raising livestock, and hunting. And guess what? A lot of food doesn't grow in the winter. And animals migrate or hibernate. So there was a lot less food available. If they ate a lot of food in the spring, summer, and fall when it was abundant, they might put on some weight. Then that extra body fat would be burned off in the winter when food was scarce. It would keep them alive. We don't have famines in the US, and we don't have food scarcity in the winter. We have an unlimited food supply, and we're overeating year round. And most of us are gaining a little bit of weight, a few pounds a year or more, year after year after year. And there's a snowball effect. The heavier you get, the quicker you gain even more weight. This is why so many of us are overweight and obese. Obesity is the second leading cause of cancer. Cigarette smoking is the number one cause of cancer. Obesity is number two. When you're carrying a lot of extra fat on your body, it's a huge burden to your system. Body fat produces a lot of excess hormones, which can promote inflammation and fuel cancer growth. An obese body is overworked and overwhelmed, which leads to the breakdown in optimal functions of various systems in your body, which leads to chronic diseases like high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, etc. Obesity weakens your body, and that creates an environment that's hospitable to cancer growth. Now, being overweight has never been a problem for me, but I did smoke cigarettes as a teenager and young adult. And cigarettes are the number one cause of cancer, and not just lung cancer. There are many cancers that are related to cigarette smoking. Because when you smoke a cigarette, carcinogenic compounds go from your lungs into your bloodstream and circulate throughout your entire body. Colon cancer can be caused by cigarettes. For all I know, smoking cigarettes could have instigated cancerous cells in my colon. Then my unhealthy diet and lifestyle choices created an environment where that cancer could grow. If you smoke now is the time to stop, like today. Don't put it off. Don't switch to e-cigarettes. It's going to be a tough couple weeks of nicotine withdrawal, cravings, and detox, but there are way worse things. You're a grown-up. You can handle it. If you're not willing to quit smoking or chewing tobacco or drinking or using drugs, there's no point in doing anything else because those destructive lifestyle behaviors will sabotage your success. Now, if you're curious about some of the other changes in the American diet in the last 100 years, here they are. Our overall carbohydrate intake has actually come down about 4%, but the type of carbohydrates has changed dramatically. In the early 1900s, most of our carbohydrates were from whole foods like grains, beans, and potatoes. Today, our carbohydrates are from processed foods, white sugar, white flour, corn syrup, chips and fries, and sugary drinks. We've replaced whole foods with processed refined foods. And as a result, our fiber consumption has come down about 10%, but we still weren't getting nearly enough fiber in 1909. The rural Africans are getting about 3 times as much fiber as we did 100 years ago. They're getting 75 grams or more per day. We're also eating about 20% more animal protein than we were in 1909. It's unnecessary. We're eating 60% more fat than we were in 1909, primarily from oils. Polyunsaturated fat consumption is up 340%, which is found in corn, soybean, and sunflower oil, and fatty fish. Monounsaturated fats are up 70%, which includes olive oil, peanut, safflower, and sesame oils, and about 20% more saturated fat, mainly from butter and lard in animal foods. And we're eating about 10% more cholesterol. All totaled, our overall fat consumption is up 60% from excessive amounts of oils and animal foods. Now let's talk about why you need to eat organic food. When you eat conventional produce, you're eating pesticides, insecticides, fungicides, and herbicides like Roundup. Those are all toxic chemicals. They're poisoning you and injuring you a little bit every day. The USDA organic certification means that farmers did not use toxic chemicals to grow the food and that the food is not genetically modified. In January 2004, when I first started eating organic, it was really expensive and there was only one store in town, Whole Foods. Today, most major grocery stores have organic produce. Things have improved a lot and the prices have come down. But yes, making the switch from junk food and fast food to organic fruits and vegetables will cost you more money each week. But whatever sacrifices you need to make to afford it are worth it. We lived in a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. We didn't have cable. We didn't have running water. Just kidding. And we lived very frugally at that time because I decided that the most important thing I could spend my money on was on my food. That was priority number one, buying the healthiest food possible. I want you to have that same mental shift. An investment in your health is one of the best investments you can make. Eating healthy now is much cheaper than getting sick. It's much cheaper to buy organic pesticide-free produce than it is to pay a hospital bill. My colon cancer surgery was $17,000. Okay, now let's talk about water. In most Western nations, we're blessed to have clean water to drink. It's clean in the sense that it's treated to kill harmful bacteria and parasites, but it can still be toxic. Most cities in America are drinking water with chlorine and fluoride added. Those are two very toxic chemicals that can promote cancer in the body. The chlorine that they put in your drinking water is sodium hypochlorite. That's bleach. They put bleach in our drinking water. Now, this isn't some sinister plot to make you sick. They put the bleach in there to kill bacteria, which is a good thing. The problem is then you drink the bleach, which is a bad thing. You've got to filter your drinking water. Fluoride is also completely unnecessary. It was added to our drinking water as a public health effort when producers of fluoride, which was a toxic byproduct of industrial aluminum manufacturing and the phosphate fertilizer industry, convinced the government that we would have healthier teeth if they added fluoride to our water supply. It's completely unnecessary and does not make your teeth healthier. In fact, our family has not consumed fluoridated water, with the exception of the occasional water fountain or in a restaurant, in 12 years. And guess what? No cavities. We've also used fluoride-free toothpaste for 12 years. No cavities. I went to the dentist in November 2016 for the first time in 5 years, and he raved about my teeth. Healthy teeth come from a healthy diet. You will get all the fluoride you need from eating a whole foods plant-based diet, rich in fruits and vegetables. So you've got to filter your water. Besides chlorine and fluoride, there's all kinds of pollution in our water supply, from industrial waste runoff, pesticide and fertilizer runoff from commercial agriculture, and from the large-scale chicken, beef, and pork farms where they're pumping these animals full of antibiotics, and then the animal waste runs off into the water supply. Not to mention the lead and rust components from the pipes that may be bringing water to your house. There are hundreds of potential contaminants in our water supply, even if you have well water. So I highly recommend you invest in a really good filtration system. Most water filters remove very little. They remove some chlorine and some heavy solids, but that's about it. So reverse osmosis and distillers remove pretty much everything. But if you do a little research on the popular faucet filters and pitcher filters, you'll find that they don't filter much at all. In 2004, I bought a countertop distiller. I used it for many years. Eventually it started leaking, and I switched to a Berkey water filter. The reason I like the Berkey, it removes 99.9% of hundreds of contaminants, and it has a fluoride attachment that removes 95% of fluoride and arsenic, which is another cancer causer. Plus, the Berkey's portable, doesn't require any water pressure or electricity, and the two main filters will purify 6,000 gallons of water, which means if you consume 10 gallons of water per week, it will last you about 11 years. I made a video called 5 Reasons Why I Love My Berkey Water Filter. You can watch it at chrisbeatcancer.com/Berkey. Okay, we've covered diet. Now let's talk about our lifestyle. We're living a very different lifestyle than the healthiest, longest living cultures around the world. Number one is being sedentary. We just don't move our bodies enough. Sitting is the new smoking, because people who are seated for 8 hours a day or more are prone to health problems. When you're in motion, you're increasing circulation and burning calories. Activity promotes health. Movement is life. When you don't move, you promote disease. There's a very simple solution to this. You just have to move more. Take the stairs instead of the elevator every day. Walk, run, hike, dance, do yoga, rock climb, do karate. Any extra movement you can do will help you. You've got to move your body every day. I'll cover this in detail in the exercise and rest module, including the best exercise for your immune system, how much exercise you need each day, the types of exercise you want to avoid, and how to get optimal healing sleep. Another destructive lifestyle habit is substance abuse. Alcohol and illegal drug abuse are obvious health destroyers, but prescription drug use can be as well. We have an epidemic right now of prescription drug use and addiction. All prescription drugs have side effects. For starters, they're all hard on your liver, which is your body's main detoxification organ. Once your liver goes down, you're dead. Many of the most common prescription drugs, like blood pressure and cholesterol lowering drugs and drugs for mood disorders, have significant long-term effects in the body. Drug companies are one of the biggest advertisers on TV. And if you pay attention to the drug commercials, it's not uncommon to hear in the disclosure that many of these drugs may cause certain types of cancer. This includes birth control drugs, fertility drugs, psychiatric drugs, digestive disorder drugs, and hormone replacement therapy. Any prescription drug could be suspect. Read the warning labels carefully. If you're taking multiple prescription drugs, then your odds are even higher because there's a synergistic toxicity that happens when in your body when you're taking multiple drugs. Something else you need to know. There are over 100 prescription drugs that inhibit the production of melatonin, which is one of the most powerful anti-cancer hormones in your body. Melatonin stops cancer growth, but it's only produced at night when you sleep. This is also why it's common for people who take prescription drugs to suffer from insomnia. Even if you don't take prescription drugs, if you stay up late every night, you're not getting good quality healing sleep. If you're a workaholic and you're working 18 hours a day and getting 6 hours of sleep or less, then you're chronically sleep deprived and your health will suffer for it. Melatonin is a key component of cancer prevention and healing. Now, I realize getting off prescription drugs can be tricky, and quitting cold turkey can even be life-threatening depending on the drug and your medical condition. If that's your situation, I want to encourage you to share this goal with your doctor who can work with you to hopefully reduce some of your doses now and help you get off prescription drugs over time as your health improves. Remember, you might feel lousy for a week or more while you're breaking your body's dependence on prescription drugs. But once your body fully detoxifies and adapts to functioning without drugs, you will feel good again. Okay, so let's recap. The diet and lifestyle habits that promote cancer are smoking, drinking, illegal drug use, prescription drug use, being sedentary, and lack of sleep. I eliminated every negative lifestyle habit in my life. For some of you, this may sound like a daunting task, but don't be overwhelmed. I did it, and you can do it too. And I'm going to walk you through it step by step in the rest of the Square One course. Circling back to what I said at the beginning of this module, there are 3 pillars of health: your diet and lifestyle, your environment, and stress. So let's talk about factor number 2, environmental pollution. We live in a world full of toxic chemicals. There are over 80,000 man-made chemicals in our environment. Thousands of new chemicals are approved every year by the government, and many of these chemicals do not have adequate safety testing. Some of them are known carcinogens. Many of them are industrial and agricultural chemicals, and some are pharmaceutical drugs like certain chemo drugs. We're being bombarded with cancer-causing industrial chemicals. Next, we've got toxic pollutants in our environment, like air pollution from automobile and industrial exhaust. LA has a notorious smog problem from pollution, but you may be surprised to know that American cities don't even crack the top 1,000 most polluted cities on Earth, according to the WHO. Cities in India, Saudi Arabia, China, and Russia have some of the worst pollution. But it doesn't take much to make you sick. So it's important to take a look at your environment. Do you live in a polluted area? Are you breathing toxic fumes? We used to think that living out in the country was a healthy place to live. Not necessarily. If you're surrounded by conventional farmland, then you're bombarded with toxic pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizers. You may work in a toxic environment. If you work in a factory around industrial chemicals, paints, varnishes, solvents, and plastics, and you're breathing in smoke and fumes every day, these are potential cancer causers. If you're a mechanic working around gas, oil, lubricants, antifreeze, engine exhaust, Even hairdressers have elevated rates of cancer because they're breathing the fumes from bleaches, dyes, straighteners, hairspray, nail polish, all of the chemicals in beauty products. Even working at a print shop or a copy place where you're breathing printer ink all day long could be hazardous. Dry cleaning chemicals are notoriously toxic. I just found out a few months ago that the groundwater under the house I lived in when I had cancer has been polluted for years by chemicals from a former dry cleaner around the corner. It's important to take a hard look at any toxic chemicals you may be exposed to at work or at home. Incense, candles, and air fresheners may smell nice, but they also put out toxic smoke and chemical fumes. Get rid of them. Diffusing essential oils is a much safer alternative. While you're at it, it's a good idea to replace any toxic chemical cleaning products with natural, non-toxic ones. Laundry detergent, dish soap, spray cleaners, Dr. Bronner's, Earth Friendly, and EcoVert are a few top-rated green cleaning products that I like. Also, check your house for toxic mold and radon. Toxic mold can make you very sick and vulnerable to cancer, and radon gas is the second leading cause of lung cancer besides smoking, causing about 10% of lung cancer deaths in non-smokers. Mold and radon test kits are inexpensive, and you can buy them on Amazon and at many hardware stores. Finally, in addition to the toxic chemicals that you may be putting in your body, there's also the chemicals you're putting on your body. Your skin eats what you put on it. If you're putting body care products on your skin, lotions, potions, creams, makeup, toners, your body is absorbing that stuff into your bloodstream. The ingredients in personal care products are largely unregulated and can contain known cancer causers like formaldehyde and endocrine disrupting chemicals like phthalates and parabens. There's no way to test the long-term safety of putting all of these chemicals, soaps, lotions, shampoo, conditioners, moisturizers, perfumes, and deodorants on your skin and into your bloodstream every day for decades. This is a concern for everyone, but more so for women because they use a lot more body care products than men. So your best bet is to switch to verified, non-toxic brands and use as little as possible. Healthy, beautiful skin is created by your diet from the inside out. You can research non-toxic skincare, makeup, and cleaning products on the Environmental Working Group website. That's EWG.org. They have a searchable database with thousands of products. It's a great way to find clean, non-toxic home and body care products. If you have cancer, or if you want to prevent cancer, you need to reduce your toxic load as much as possible. Every little bit helps. Like I said in the beginning of this talk, cancer is the convergence of multiple health-destroying factors in your life and in your body. If you imagine the effect of all these pollutants coming into your body every day, well, the more you can eliminate, the better. The harder your body has to work at detoxification, the less energy and capacity it has to prevent or heal cancer. If you're constantly overeating, putting tons of toxins in and on your body, and breathing toxic fumes, your body is working overtime every day to process all the junk that's coming in. And just like a factory, if everybody's working overtime with no breaks, then problems are going to arise, but everyone's too distracted to notice. And that's how cancer goes undetected in the body. 70 to 95% of cancers are caused by diet, lifestyle, and environmental factors. The sad reality is the cancer industry knows what's causing cancer, but they're not interested in prevention and they're not addressing the causes. They just want to treat the symptoms because that's where the money is. The more you can reduce your body's toxic load, the better your odds of preventing and healing cancer. Now, some things you can change quickly, like exercising every day, switching to an organic diet, getting rid of all the toxic stuff in your home, like the body care products and chemical cleaning products, air fresheners, candles, incense. But other changes take time, like getting off prescription drugs, or changing jobs, or moving. Remember, this is a process. The goal is not perfection. The goal is continual improvement. All the small changes you make will add up to a big change over time. So don't let the changes you need to make overwhelm you and stress you out. Just make a to-do list and get after it. The 3 pillars of health are diet and lifestyle, environment, and stress. Stress is so important that I dedicated an entire module to it. In Module 7, I'll show you how to identify and eliminate the harmful, health-destroying stress in your life. Stress is the X factor in cancer. It's the one thing that can outweigh everything else you do. Don't skip Module 7. For some of you, it will be one of the most important modules in the entire course. Now, the next 2 modules are all about the anti-cancer diet. I'll show you exactly what I ate every day to help my body heal cancer, along with the nutritional science that supports it all. This is a simple, powerful, proven dietary protocol featuring the most potent anti-cancer fruits, veggies, herbs, and spices. My simple daily anti-cancer routine, juicing and smoothies, raw food versus cooked food, whether or not you should eat animal protein, and more. Don't miss the anti-cancer diet modules. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.